My name is Craig Williams. With me here is Tanu Hawk, and we work on a core mapping team in development at Esri and Redlands, and that includes things like map services, the print service, which we're talking about today, and just general mapping capabilities and apps like ArcGIS Pro and ArcMap. So this is the enabling high quality printing and web applications session. And I'm going to start out, I told a few people in the room before the session started, we're talking primarily in this session about the new, more modern print service we've shipped with ArcGIS Enterprise 10.6. If you're not going to be upgrading to 10.6 for a long time, parts of this presentation will not be applicable to you. But the general workflow existed in ArcMap and the previous versions of Server. But a lot of this workflow is enabled from ArcGIS Pro, and there's a lot of advantages to that. And main thing are quality improvements associated with the print service. So these are quality improvements you'll also see in ArcGIS Pro itself. So support for true color level transparency, PDFs then are produced with vector features with transparency and proper picture symbols, not the heavy rasterization you may have seen from the previous version of the print service. In the layouts themselves, better Unicode support. There's some examples over on the right of some issues you may have seen in the past, such as those little blocky pieces of text in the upper image on the right. In the text world, they call that tofu, because it looks like little blocks of tofu. That's when you can't find that glyph in a font, for instance. There are some issues with that. We used to have to create lots of ghost layers, these phantom layers that didn't exist in your web map to properly visually represent the map on the screen, but that would also appear in your legend. You would see legend patches pixelated, things like that. And these are now resolved with the new print service that we've released in ArcGIS Enterprise 10.6. We will note you will want the recently released ArcGIS Server 10.6 printing and script tool patch, as this resolves a pretty large memory leak. And if you were going to be using the print service, you'll want that patch. That was a leak with general script tool execution in ArcGIS Enterprise. So what's new? The top things, in addition to the ones I previously mentioned, vector tile layer support. So vector tiles can be printed, and they'll be printed as vectors, except for point symbols and sometimes text, which are not actually vector in vector tiles. That is an implementation detail of how vector tiles work. Better support for the smart mapping capabilities in ArcGIS Online. And if you use something like the vector renderer off raster layers, that's used sometimes, they call it the vector field renderer, I think. For doing things like wind direction, you'll have support for that as well. Client API support for the new features. At this point, you require custom apps using the ArcGIS API for JavaScript 4.6 or higher. As of right now, it is not supported in ArcGIS Online. That's going to fix itself in the next release in April. So ArcGIS Online and the JavaScript API will be able to fully take advantage of all the features in April, so a short distance away. Okay, we'll jump into print services. So when we talk about print services, generally we're talking about creating a PDF, really a printable document. You want that document to be printed at exact scale. You want to leverage sort of desktop layouts. ArcGIS Pro has a lot of great layout capabilities you want to be able to leverage there. You want it to display all contents of your web map. So if you have feature layers, you have graphics, you have other things in your web map, you want those to come across when you print it. You want things like all the services, graphics. Let's see what else. Rasters you can have now, raster services. Some people want to be able to modify the map during that process. So why would you want to do that? Well, sometimes people have something like a cached map service, cached as raster tiles, and they actually want to inject the raw feature layers during that process, during the print process. So they're not printing the cached raster content, they're actually printing raw feature content. And we'll talk a little bit about how to do these things later. Another case is high DPI. If you want a really high quality print, 600, 1200 DPI going out to a printer. You want to be able to do that with a print service. So how do we accomplish all these? We have sort of a three-tiered approach to meet all these needs, and we'll go through each one of those tiers and give demos along the way during this presentation. The first tier is the simplest case. This is just to use the out-of-the-box geoprocessing service with ArcGIS Enterprise. This is primarily for small format printing, your letter or A4 printing in your office printer. It's a synchronous service. It supports token-based secure services. And that's the easiest approach to use, and it works for a lot of cases just out of the box. The second tiered approach is more of a custom configuration, and this is publishing your own print service, but you can supply your own templates. So your own layout templates that maybe have your organization's logo or different sizes that you may need that are different from the standard templates that come with the out-of-the-box service. If your print jobs are going to take a really long time in large format cases or drawing large amounts of data, you may want to switch that service to be asynchronous. And you'll commonly see that when you're doing these large format cases. So printing or creating a PDF that's going to go to a plotter, for instance. And finally, tier 3 is really a lot of the advanced cases. And these are really cases where you want to manipulate the content of the map. You want to do layer swaps or some other modification of the map content. And you do that using arcpy. The mapping site package in ArcGIS Pro is called arcpy.mp. It is very similar to arcpy.mapping in ArcMap, but has some breaking changes related to the fact that you're working with projects instead of map documents. But for the most part, it's very similar to move across the two. So print services are powered by web maps. That's a consistent format that all of our APIs use and produce. It's a JSON spec that has the symbols, the services being rendered, can have additional graphics and things like that. We package up the web map specification as a JSON string and pass that to the print service. The print service then processes that, produces the PDF, and returns a URL of the PDF that you can open in your client. A big key thing with the print service is that your services in the web map must be accessible to the print service for it to be able to print them. So a classic case would be your organization uses ArcGIS Online heavily and uses the print service in ArcGIS Online, but in your organization you reference a lot of local services. That print service is outside of your organization, doesn't have credentials to get into your organization. It's not going to be able to see those services. So keep that in mind when you're dealing with print services. That's a case where a lot of people will bring that print service into their organization and host that on a local portal. Printing cache services are kind of a special case. Raster tiles are typically created at 96 DPI in the ArcGIS world. Dynamic layers can be enabled for a map service that's cached. And this allows us to print at a higher DPI than the cached images, because we will make a dynamic layers drawing request to that service to bring down a better looking rendition of that service. So you can see on the left, if dynamic layers are disabled, we'll just draw the tiles raw. You get that pixely blocky image. On the right, if dynamic layers are enabled and we're drawing at 600 DPI, we'll actually issue a 600 DPI request and bring that down. If your service is not enabled for dynamic layer support, you need publisher or admin privileges to update the service to have that enabled, but a lot of services, especially map services published out of ArcGIS Pro, have dynamic layers turned on by default anyway. If you're using ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise, you just register your own print service. If you want to do that on-premises case where you're printing behind a firewall, you'll want to use an on-premises print service with your organizational account. And that really enables that print command at the top of the viewer window there. So you'll see that, and that's administered through utility services in your organization's settings. And we'll flip over to Tanu, and he'll demonstrate out-of-the-box print service.
All right, you guys hear me okay? Back? Good, all right. Thanks, Craig. How are you guys holding up? It's almost 5:40. You feel tired already, no? Good? All right, anyways. So, it's not showing up there. Oh, my bad. Nope. Ooh, I shouldn't have, gosh. I shouldn't have done that. I made a bad mistake. All right, I think we're good now. Okay, so how many of you have not used print service? All right, good. Of you guys, how many actually never used this option? This print option? Okay, so there are some folks who use this one, but you're claiming that you did not use print service. So you were kind of wrong, because behind the scene, it's actually using printing service. So technically, you use printing service, you simply did not know it. Okay, now a followed-up question. So we're drawing this whole map on a web browser, right? And web browser comes with a print option. Why cannot I use that one? I have to have another print option on the top of my map. Anyone? Brave soul? Absolutely, right? Of course, first of all, look at the Firefox actually cannot render that vector tile, but on top of that one, it actually draws the entire web page, includes the UI and everything, which basically you don't want, right? Instead, you want something like that, which you can print out. It's like a traditional map. You can give it to someone, and you're fine. So the goal of my demos, like this one and the second demo, is to get to this one and how I can get to a print service that will produce an image like that or PDF like that. Okay? All right. So, as you see that, ArcGIS Online or Map Viewer or Portal, when you install it and you go to that one, it comes with a printing option. So I can click on it, and in a few seconds, it will produce a map. There you go, right? It looks okay. It will probably work for some of you, right? But there are some issues to this one, right? First of all, it doesn't have much good title. It doesn't have missing all those map surroundings, right? We usually see. Scale bar is one of them. And I don't have much control on the layout itself. And it's small, right? What if I want to print in a A0 size, 48 by 36 inch, right? I don't have that option from here. So how can we solve that one? Before we do that, there is another problem that Craig mentioned earlier, right? With this one. So for example, I have this map service running on my local machine. In your case, it could be inside your firewall within a network. And I added this to this map. It draws fine. And I know it's going to fail. And I'm going to show you why it failed. That's why I'm opening up the web browser developer tool so that I can monitor the network traffic. Right? So if I click on it, and I submit the same option, pick the same option, and it fails, right? So if I go back, oops, not that, my bad. All right, there you go. If I scroll down, parameter, response, and you see that it fails because it says, I cannot access that map service you're running on, okay? So one of the things, like when you are debugging something, this is probably one thing first you need to take a look at it, what's going on in the network traffic, okay? Let me close that, and let me show you what. So Craig mentioned that one, why it is not working. So the reason it worked in the first place is because I am using my web application inside my firewall, and I used a public map service, in my case actually feature service. And then when the application is happy at this point. I use my base map from ArcGIS Online, which is public, everything is happy. Then I'll click my print button. It goes to the printing service hosted on ArcGIS Online server. And what happens at that point, it converts that map into a string. It's a gigantic JSON, as Craig mentioned, and it gets handed over to the printing service. Printing service reads that JSON and reconstruct that map. Like if I asked you or gave you actually some map service or feature service URL and say, hey, can you create a map for me with these two URLs, put this particular base map, and by the way, zoom to that particular extent and export that to PDF. You can do that, right? You can do with the ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro. Print service basically use the same one. So when you construct that map and try to access that, it works fine because the map service was publicly available. Good. Print service is happy. It produces the output. It gives back to me. Okay. The reason it failed is because the next case is I actually added a private service which was running on my machine, or in case you're within a network. So, okay, get submitted. Print service reconstruct the map and try to access it, and it fails because it cannot come to my network. My service was not publicly available. Okay? How can I fix that? Craig mentioned that. The way we will do that, we'll have our own printing service running within our network. So my web application is good. It can access my private map service. It can access the public map service, which is my base map, for example, or the feature service that I used in my case. Then I was ready to submit. I submitted my job to the printing service. Printing service is running within my network, so it can access my map service running within my network, which is fine. And it can go outside because my admin allows that printing service to go and outside and fetch the thing from the server side, right? So now the printing service is happy. It creates that PDF and it gives back to me. I'm good. Now the question is, how can I have a print service running with my machine, right? So it's actually very simple. All right. So when you install ArcGIS server and go to the manager, for example, inside the utilities folder, you'll already see something called printing tools. You see that one here? Right. It usually comes in the stop mode unless you actually install Portal. In that case, it gets automatically started. In my case, I simply start it up, okay, to save the time. And if I take a look at that printing service itself, so in the REST endpoint, that's utility. And the moment right away you see this a geoprocessing server, right? Craig mentioned that one. It has two tasks. Export web map task, which is the real workhorse. It does all the job. And there's a get layout template info task, which returns metadata. We'll talk about that later. Okay. So if I go to that one, you see that it has 4 parameters. Web map as JSON. That is the big deal. I said that the string that gets handed over to the printing service, that is a value to this parameter. Most of the time you may not need to worry about this guy, but sometimes you need to. Okay, we'll talk about that in detail later. And then its format, what are the formats it supported? These are the formats that we supported, PDF, PNG, all the standard ones. And we have the layout templates. And out of the box, print service comes with 8 layout templates and a map only option. Okay. So basically, print service allows you to choose one of those templates, and you can get the output in that format. Okay. So now that I have a print service, how can I use that? Remember, Craig mentioned that there is a organization settings, right? So if I go to my ArcGIS Online org settings, you see that there is a utility service tab, and there is a printing. By default, it uses Esri default, which is something available on ArcGIS Online. Click on it, and it actually adds some templates right there. So this is kind of a little different than the templates that we looked at the REST endpoint. Okay, this template is actually basically a combination, right? If I click on this guy, I can choose. Okay, I want to output as a PDF, not as an image. That means PNG, and this is the layout I picked, and I want to include the print legend. Okay, I update that, or I can create a new one. I can say this is my A4 landscape PDF. Choose that PDF. I'll choose that A4 landscape because that came from this guy, right? This is the A4 landscape. It's coming from that list. I include PDF print legend. I'm done. I save it. Now if I go back to my map service, to my web map and refresh it, then you will see that, come on. All right. You'll see that this guy gets populated with all the templates that I define or automatically define on the organization settings, right? And I can choose my A4 portrait that to get a PDF output back from there. And this time it is submitting the request to my print service running on my local machine, or in your case, it could be within your network, right? Because that's what I picked. But this guy here, the edit settings, oops, my bad. There, that's what I put. That's, hey, use this print service. Do not use the ArcGIS Online default print service. Okay, so take a look at this one. All right, First of all, there's some clumsiness in the legend. You see that? Even though it's a 10.6 server, as Craig mentioned, is ArcGIS Online is still waiting to catch up with this one. So these are the issues that you will be running into. And plus, you see that one, we see white space on top and the bottom. There's a vector tile layer, we have side effect on that one. And there are a few other things that you may run into the print service, like this one. See that legend? Okay. Or this one, as Craig mentions, the tofu. So I didn't know that tofu keyword thing before. Okay. So now how can you fix that one? So Craig mentioned that you can, if you cannot wait, and you are a developer, you can actually go switch to 4x JavaScript API. You'll be fine, or just wait for a few weeks. So what I'll do, I'll just switch to the latest server, ArcGIS Online. That's a preview mode that I have access to. And this time, I'll submit the same query. Submit the same print job with the same output, same map for the same output page size. It's going to take a little while, and hopefully it will work. Come on.
QA is a little bit slower.
Yeah. And we are all using this one probably right now. I don't know how many people are using it right now. Okay. Come on.
While you're waiting for that,
Yes.
that choice list, can that be dynamically updated? After you've published the print service, could you put an additional MXV in there and dynamically refresh?
The question is, once you publish the print service, can you update that list? Can you add a new template to that one? The answer is no. The moment you add a new template, you have to republish it. But if you want to update the content of an existing template and the folder is actually registered to your data store, then you can do that without republishing that. All right. In the meantime, it came back. Look at it. It's nice and very cool, right? All the problems are gone. Let me open that in Adobe just to show you a couple of stuff. Open. All right. All right. So, as you see that, the legends are all good now. So we had this problem with this Unicode. See that Unicode problem is gone. And there is no white space on top or below. And if I keep zooming in, see that one? The lines are actually remaining as lines. There is no pixelation at all. So that's the vector tile. Okay, it's coming as vector. These circles are maintaining circles as circles, and the transparency and everything, right? And the text, I can even select the text. So text comes as a text, too. And on top of that one, as Craig mentioned, we maintain the layered structures, too. So you can see those layers coming from the web map, and you can toggle them on and off if you want to. Isn't it cool? That's the time to say yay? Yeah, there you go. All right. So we're there yet. We're very good. We're very close to what we want to, but it's not quite there yet, right? It doesn't have my branding. I don't have my logo. It does not have those overview map that I want to do, right? This is like this way. We don't have that option. So that will lead us to the next section where Craig will talk about how to create your own printing service, your own templates, and I'll come back and do the demo. That one.
Thanks, Tanu. So all those nice qualities of the PDF that Tanu showed, if you haven't used ArcGIS Pro and haven't done an export from ArcGIS Pro, that's what you're missing. So all of those things exist in Pro, and Pro maintains layers much better than ArcMap, and that really has to do with the overhaul of the graphics pipeline and how output works. In Pro, the new print service is taking advantage of that same technology behind the scenes in the service itself. So okay, we'll talk about custom print service with your own layout templates next, as Tanu indicated. And really, this custom configuration involves publishing your own service. That's publishing the export web map tool, but providing your own templates. So that's where you can do branding, various different sizes of layouts, different layout designs, fonts, etc. You could also choose to make that service asynchronous. I think in practice, most people don't. They still leave it synchronous because it has better feedback through the web apps. But there are some cases where you're doing very lengthy output where you may want to do that, especially if you're calling the service through your own code. And to retrieve the layout template metadata, you're going to want to republish the get layout template info with the templates that you're using in that print service. It's an ArcPy script-based script tool itself. You'll see that the export web map tool actually is a ArcPy written service. That is different than an ArcMap. In ArcMap, export web map was written in C++. When we went to go do it in ArcGIS Pro and the new print service for the 10.6 services, we took a look at it and realized we could do everything we needed to do in Python. Therefore, we did it as a script tool as well. So the advantage of having the layout template info is that it allows the widgets to populate custom text elements. So if you want to really customize your print experience where someone can hand enter in information that's going to be pushed through to the print service, you'll want to do that with your templates. And in an app like Web App Builder, those will show up in the widget and really allows for a customizable capability there. A couple things to keep in mind when you're making layout templates. You want to remove all existing layers, except if you're doing an overview map or you're working on really advanced printing workflows. We'll talk about those a bit later, but if you read the help on the Python functions we're calling behind the scenes, we'll talk more about these later. There's an example in section 3 about that. If you update existing templates, as Tanu indicated, you will not need to republish the service unless you didn't register the template folder to the data store, in which case we've copied them. If you're a savvy user, you could go find those. But generally, if you're going to do update mechanism, register a folder in a data store and update them at the data store path. All right, we'll flip it over to Tanu again, who's going to demo custom templates.
All right. Thanks, Craig. So how many of you guys use your own printing service with your own templates? All right, good. Okay, and out of them, how many actually have not started using Pro, ArcGIS Pro? Okay, this is your motivation right now. Okay, this is the reason you need to move to ArcGIS Pro. Okay, ArcGIS Pro layout has a very, very advanced layout capability. Okay, first of all, as Craig mentioned, that with the 10.6, if you want to take a full advantage of the 10.6, all the cool things that we talked about, all the enhancements and everything, you need to publish, first of all, you need to author your layout from ArcGIS Pro, and then you have to publish that your printing service from ArcGIS Pro. You can still use ArcMap, just a side note, but that will actually create the old version of printing service, and you will run into the same problem that you have always run into. Okay, so use ArcGIS Pro. Okay, to start with, usually what we do, most of the cases we already have some existing templates that we use internally, and then we want to prepare those templates for ArcGIS, our printing service, right? And I will show you how you can do that. And of course, if you have an already existing layout as an MXD, of course you can always import that from the insert menu and import, and that will import that one, and you can start that as a baseline. So in this case, I already have something, and look at the first thing first is that we can make the data frame non-rectangular in ArcGIS Pro, right? Which we could not be able to do that in ArcMap. Okay, so there are two. I wanted to have a main map frame, and I want to have an overview map frame at the bottom. Okay. Since there are two map frames, there is one thing you have to do. In MXD, in the 10X, there was a concept of active data frame, which we do not have here. Okay, there is no such thing called active data frame. So what we do is that you need to do something else, and which you documented that one. So if you go to a doc page, the server doc, and say use GIS service, and there it is printing in web application, and under there is a tutorial. The tutorial, if you search for ArcGIS Pro, okay, there it is. It says right there, oops. It says when you have more than one map frame in a layout, you have to name one as a web map _ frame. And there is, of course, typo. Dot should be outside of that double quotes. Okay? So that's what I will be doing. First thing I'll do, I'll click on it, go to that property page, and change the name without the dot. If you do not do that, you will run into an error. Printing service will complain about that one. Okay. Number one. Number two, as Craig mentioned, that we do not need all those layers at all. And did you see the nice thing about this one? There is a table of contents, and you can access all the layers, and you can remove those layers right from that. You don't have to switch back and forth. Okay? So make sure your main map frame is clean, but your overview map frame you should leave some, because printing service does not touch that overview map frames. It only works with that main map frame. Okay. Once we do that, what I need to do, since it's an overview map frame, I want to include an extend indicator. The way I would do that, I will go to the Insert tab on the ribbon and click that Extend Indicator. Click that. I'll change the symbol to something a little nicer. Apply that, and then I'll go back and change the setting so that it will link to that map frame extend at 250%. So you can see that probably you can barely see there is a little oval there shape. You'll see that when I will actually have an output there. Okay, so I'm good. I clean up my map frame. I link them, link my main map frame with my overview map frame. Okay, now next thing is the title. Okay, we always have title, and this title is static. Okay, we need to make the title dynamic so that user can pass their own title, and the output should honor, printing service should honor that. The way I will do that is, again, I will go back to the help, and there is a little text here. We already talked about that. You can actually do it from the drop-down menu, but it's kind of hidden. But you can just do it from the from the help. Come from that, I will just. Where did that go? Text one. Must have done some. There you go. There is undo capability. That's nice. Okay, so I'll paste that. And then when I apply it, it's gone. There's nothing showing up because my empty string is actually empty. So I'm just putting that. So when there is no text, there will actually default text there. Okay. So I'm good. My title is updated. Now I can update my other stuff. Like I want to add a logo, right? Which I did already. It's just a PNG file, nothing else. You see the property says you're pointing to an file on my hard drive, and then. This is the one I added as a dynamic text, which is from dynamic text on the ribbon. I added the service layer credits. That's what I did. And for my other one, what I have is I have some some XML tag to show the time and the date when I will be printing I will submit my print job. You can use that from there too, from the same drop-down box. There's a current time. Oh no, that's a map frame. This is the system current time. You can do that right there. Or you can change that too. And there are few things I want to add. And that's again in the document. So I want to add some credits. So I'll just put them right there. Put some empty text box. Default value. I want to add my author name who's actually printing it. So I add that one there too. All right, I'm done. I applied it, and I'm good. It is drawing it with the empty text box right now. Default value right now. Yep. All right, so I'm good. I have my legend, which is already there. It's already linked to that one. Oh, one other thing. That is, I want to add some custom text. Right? I got my default text, I got my title, but I need to add some custom text. I created already a text box here. In ArcMap, there is when you actually authored a template in ArcMap and you want to add a custom text element, basically what you have to do is to just name it. And you see that every text element, every element on layout has a name. So the way you distinguish a text or declare that a text box is as a custom text element, it's by putting the name within a curly braces. And that will take care of, printing service will take care of that one. So I applied it. Next, I go to my catalog. There's a layout. I see my layout. I can right click on that one, and I have to save that as a layout file. That is one of the biggest difference. In the ArcMap, you compose or author your layout and you save that as an MXD in a folder. In Pro, you export that out as a PageX file, or what we call layout file, in a folder. Okay? And after that, everything is the same. So you go to the geoprocessing window, you search for export web map, which we introduced at Pro 2.1. You can right click and locate that. It is again the same structure that that it is in ArcMap. You open it, you pick your, all you have to do is to pick the template that has those PageX files. In my case, I have only one. It's showing up right here. And I can run this once. That's how you know this is the same user experience. You run it, and then you go to Analyzer History tab. You see that one. You right click, and you can share that as a web tool. Okay. Since I have custom text element, while publishing that, there is one other thing I have to do is that, there's one thing is that I have to, by default, you should always try to use the synchronize, as Craig mentioned, unless it is a really big job. That's why you should switch to asynchronize, and change the message level to error, so that you can actually get a good error message back when something goes south. And then I have to add a new tool there called Get Layout Templates Info, which I ran before prior to this session. So I add this one. So I have to publish my Export Web Map tool. I have to publish a Get Layout Template Info tool, which is basically returns some metadata that will help us down the road. We'll show you how it helped. Okay? So then you analyze it and share that. Same workflow. So, and it requires, of course, Pro requires you to go to the portal to publish it, and it just works from there. So I already published that for the sake of the time, and this is my print service. Okay, again, it's just GP server, GP service. It has 2 tasks. The bottom task always have to be that name. This one can have a different name, but his parameter is the same one. So the way I will use it again, I will copy that URL of this task, not the root of this service, of this task, and then I'll go back to my org settings. Again, the same way, paste it. I will make a simple change so that I will get a PDF, and I want to include my legend. I will save it, and I will refresh my map. When I do that, refreshed, so that map is coming, and now print option shows only that one option. It has map only and my A4 this one. So if I choose, all I have to do is submit it, and it is working behind the scene. While it is doing that, let me show you what that JSON that we have been talking about. Right? It's a gigantic JSON. So the JSON has basically primary 3 top-level objects. One is the map option, operational layer, and export option. Map option, as you can figure out, it actually says, okay, what is the extent that you are looking at, the spatial reference, and scale that you are looking at. Okay. Oops. Layout option is where you want to say the title, the name of the author, copyright, scale bar options, like whether you want to change the scale bar. You cannot toggle the visibility of the scale bar, but you can change the unit of the scale bar or the unit label of the scale bar. And the same with the legend options. If you have like 10 layers in your map, if you want to only add 2 layers in the legend, you can control that with this one. And the beast is this operational layer. Okay. So in my case, I have 4 or 5 layers probably. The first one is that vector tile layer. As you see, that it just points to an URL. The bottom one is, again, it's a vector tile layer pointing to an URL. Then I have a map service layer. This is the pointing to that one. It has some layer definition, which includes the drawing info. Okay. It says how I'm drawing it on the client side. This is the feature service URL. And we had some of the labels drawing in yellow. That was actually sent as a feature collection. So it includes geometry and all the symbols and everything. Okay? So let's go back to my map. I think it's done. So it's done, right? So I got my output. It looks nice. It has the title, which is basically the title of my map. But I didn't have the chance to give the proper title name. I'll get to that in a second. But it looks good, right? We're almost there. Right now, there is two things, right? One thing is that my title is, I don't have the control, and there's one thing I missed. That is, I wanted to have the grid on my map. Okay, now if I go back to my, to Pro, and open the same one. So this is my map. So it is another, again, good advantage of Pro, is that all you have to, if you want to add a Pro grid, all you have to do is to choose a grid format. And if I remember correctly, Craig, it's a dynamically sized, right? The grid size change as I zoom in or zoom out. So once I'm done, I go back to my slide. I'll probably save it. Then right-click, save that as a layout file. As I mentioned, all we have to do is to update that. I don't have to publish it again. Okay? And then if I go back there, map. Then this time what I will do, I will actually use a web application builder. Because as you see, this guy did not give me an option to change the title. So that's why I have to use web application builder. So this is web application builder. Unfortunately, there was some security thing that I ran into with this one. That's why I'm not seeing those earthquake, the circles. So anyways, let me add that. So there is a print button. I can search for print widget, add that. And then I'll go back, and which I already copied, right? So that's the name of my service. It's OK. I'm good. Now what I can do, I can actually, in the edit mode, I can try my widget. I don't have to publish it or save it. So I open that one. So there it is. I'm seeing the template name, PDF, of course, the output. There's an advanced options there. Okay. Oh, first of all, title. Let me change my title to, say, so my crazy world, something. All right. Now, there's an info that I wanted to add. In this case, actually, I wanted to add a info for one of those earthquakes, which you don't see right now. But anyways, there is something I can copy it from here. You see that one thing, I am actually ending all of them with the /n. That's to add that as a multiple line. So I can have that output in a multiple line fashion. I'll just put that in the info. So see that info one, it came because this web application builder print widget calls that other task. Remember, there is an additional task that I included with my print service called get layout templates. So it is making call to that guy and say, hey, what are the information you have? So once it sees there is a custom text element, it actually adds that in that widget right there. You don't have to do anything. And then I submit the print. It's going to take a little while. I think I'll just hand it back to Craig in the meantime, and when I come back, I'll show you the result.
All right. Thanks, Tanu. All right, now we'll get into advanced print services with ArcPy. So why ArcPy? Generally, you're going to want to do these if you have advanced use cases. You want to swap out a service for local data or swap out one service for another. Tanu's done some demos in the past where he's done sort of printed pop-ups. A lot of times people want to do multiple page output. So they want to print the map, but then they want to embed it with another document, do pseudo reports, driving directions, things like that. And really a lot of those are possible with ArcPy because once you're kind of in the Python world, you can do whatever you want as a dev. So the main linchpin thing you need to know about working with the ArcPy workflow is that there's this one method that kind of enables the entire print service path, and that's convert web map to ArcGIS project. So if you've ever done this with ArcMap, this was convert web map to map document. But since we're working with the ArcGIS Pro concepts here, we're working with projects now. And you'll see the parameters there. The first input parameter is that web map JSON, and then the rest of the parameters are optional. You've got the template, that'd be the name of the PageX template that you want to use. The name of the map frame is optional. And then you can also specify a notes geodatabase. This is essentially where things like graphics in the web map are written to. It'll be done as an in-memory database by default if you don't specify anything, but in some cases you may want to specify a particular file path for that. Actually, before I go on, I'll just show the help for this function in the Python help for arcpy.mp, and I think one of the big things to note in here is if you scroll down way to the bottom, shows all the parameters, there's these code samples. And there's 3 or 4 code samples that demonstrate all the different kind of scenarios you may want to use when writing your own print tool using this function. And that includes things like I referred to earlier. Example 3 here involves swapping of some services or injecting layers that may already exist in the project here. So if you're going to be writing your own arcpy code for your print service, I would highly recommend reading through all these examples and understanding how they flow. And if you're familiar with arcpy workflows, these will look really familiar to you anyway. Okay. So once the web map is converted it's converted to a layout in the Pro project. It's converted to a map and then injected into the map frame on the layout. You have the full capabilities of arcpy MP on the map and the map contents. That includes modifying that content, adding content, or actually also doing exports with custom options. That's one thing we really haven't talked about yet, but the export methods in arcpy MP have some custom options for the various different file formats that you're exporting to, and you may want to tweak those depending on your scenarios. And we heavily urge you to read the help as I just showed for that. So do you want to hop back over to you then? And then we'll talk about that before the client APIs.
I can do some of the JavaScript API demo real quick.
Okay.
Yep, very quick. Okay, so as you see, most of the things you can do right out of the box. Okay, either you can use the ArcGIS Online Map Viewer or Portal Map Viewer or Web Application Builder. There are a few things, advanced things that you will not be able to do, right? For example, this is the case. I have a simple map, and I want to output that in the crazy, different projection system, right? So this is what you can do, okay, that you will not be able to do with this out-of-the-box options. Okay, the way you would do that is, so it's a JavaScript API code. It looks very simple. It's just a web map. I'm opening it up. It's the map view. There is a print task in it. I'm assigning that URL. And there is one thing I'm doing it. It's called callback. Okay. What is happening is that behind the scene, when I'm calling it back, I'm reading the JSON, and I'm changing that map option reference. I'm getting that one and changing that ID of that option. That's it. So basically, they did not actually expose that in their API, but they can always actually snip to that request that's going out and modify that one. So this is the way I did it, right? So that's one, and there is and there are many other cases you want to do, okay, JavaScript API. But there are some advanced things that you want to do on the server side, right? For example, this is the case that I'm talking about. This is Craig Tom Bowles' famous Bond map. So he actually painfully took us, I don't know how many days or weeks to do that.
Yeah, we have a colleague who's a little too into James Bond, and he actually watched every James Bond movie, and again, because he'd seen them all already, and cataloged how long James Bond spent in each location.
Yes. And he made the maps out of that.
This colleague of ours is currently in Egypt.
He is.
On a holiday. But,
okay. So what I want to do is that, let's take a look at that one. I want to print those, only the features that I'm looking at on the map, right? Which is good. I can do that always. I can do it. So what will happen interestingly here is that the print comes in with the map. Come on, come on. I'm waiting. Waiting. All right. Okay. And you see that one, it shows those maps, and there is the table at the bottom. It's reflecting that one. It's reflecting only the features that are visible on the map. And I have another example where I'm actually showing more features in my map, and there you go. So the table gets updated. So that's called dynamic table. That's again available in ArcGIS Pro. It's out of the box. But in this case, you have to write your arcpy-based solution. Okay? So what I did, very simple, is that arcpy. Actually, I don't want to go through the whole thing. Basically, the idea is that I prepare my layout such a way that it has those tables, and all the source and dynamics table properties set properly. And then I use that table, I use the layout as my layout of the printing service. This is the case Craig at the very beginning mentioned. There are some advanced use case where you want to keep your layers there. So this is this case. You want to do that, and then in arcpy code, what you're doing it, you call the convert web map to map doc. There it is. And by the way, this is the Python code that I basically copied from our Python, the export web map script tool that actually shipped, and then I modified. So this is a very starting point for you guys if you want to. So we call that one, and then I loop through all my list of the layers. I'm removing most of my service layers so that I'm left with my that feature layer that is pointing to my local file geodatabase or my SDE. And then the table gets updated with that one, and I'm exporting that to PDF. So that's it. So these are the two cases where you really want to go beyond those out-of-the-box options that we have. Back to Craig.
Okay. So we'll just finish up with a few more slides. Just when you're dealing with the APIs and printing, a couple things to keep in mind. JavaScript, you're primarily working with the print digit. SDK, runtime SDK for Java, you have the printer job, and the .NET SDK, you have the print task. If you're working with basically we tend to show JavaScript and Web App Builder and the ArcGIS Online applications because that's what most people are doing printing with. But if you're interested in these other examples, go to developers.arcgis.com for more specific examples for those SDKs. And then finally, one of the things somebody will call us out on at some point is we didn't actually print anything. We just showed you PDFs. That's not really printing in the old school world that I come from. But as I said in the beginning, print services are generally about producing PDFs and then people deal with them however they want. If you do actually wish to send this to a physical printer, there's a couple ways to do that. One is, first of all, you should use the arcpy MP workflow where you're writing your own custom tools. And if you have a local printer that you know you're going to be printing to, a lot of printers actually support sort of xcopy style workflows of printing to those printers via a file share on your network. So for instance, HP plotters have this capability. You can just find them on the network and drag and drop in Windows a PDF onto them, and they'll magically print it if they have the onboard processor for that. And you could actually script that with arcpy by doing a file copy to that Windows share. The other, probably more portable and realistic workflow is to use Google Cloud Print. That's sort of in this category that is sometimes called driverless printing. And essentially that enables a printer to talk to a cloud service. Your application will then send the PDF to that cloud service that sends it back down to your printer. And they have a lot of, if you go to the Google Cloud Print site, they have quite a few API examples in Python that allow you to call the service. If you actually go through these samples, the majority of them are authenticating with OAuth. So they're a little bit dated at this point because Google Cloud Print has been around for a long time, but there's some examples there that help you work through that. And just to recap, the big thing we want to keep in mind is that print services are powered by web maps. That's a consistent format that all of our APIs produce. And that's a JSON-based spec that you can go out there and actually read the spec. For printing purposes, there's some higher level metadata, map options, things like that. But generally, it's the web map spec that we're using throughout the rest of the platform. And you can use the out-of-the-box tool that comes with ArcGIS Enterprise, do a custom configuration of that tool, or use the arcpy MP approach to do really custom print tasks. And with that, I think we'll open it up for questions. And there's a survey I should tell you to fill out. Tanu wants to flip over, I think, and show his final demo.
No, I forgot to show my output from this web application. I submit the result, and oh, darn it, it's already...
It already expired because he waited so long.
It was there just moments ago.
Okay. There you go.
You believe me, right?
So results will time out, and that is an important lesson to learn.
Yes. So anyways, it would have looked like this, of course, and you see the text box, my custom text box populated with my option. And there are a couple of cases where you actually want to probably add more information, like you have want to have information for multiple selected features that may not fit into that area. It may overlap with the multiple layers. Multiple pages. That's where, again, it comes to the arcpy-based solution. That's where we have this option. You can actually write those text boxes and export that out to multiple pages, join them together, and output that out, right? And we have a gentleman right here. We talked about this one earlier today, and he's doing some up like that one. He's actually adding the legends because he has a ton of layers in his map, and he wants this does not fit in, so he needs to have multiple pages to add his legends, and he was using arcpy-based solution. So with that, Craig, I think we can open up.
All right, we got about
Thanks.
5 minutes for questions.
We got a question over there. Yep.
So I work for like an electric utility, and I get tons of requests just for simple maps. So I want to use a JavaScript API to kind of set up a page where they can, there's a whole bunch of options they can, like table of contents and labels and customize like that. But we do like 24 by 36 a lot, prints, and like in ArcMap or whatever, I'll use the one-to-one, to kind of see what it'll look like for the print. Have you heard of anybody that's kind of made a JavaScript, web app that kind of, I don't know, that, I see like an extent possibly, and then calculate maybe what the one-to-one would be? Have you heard of anything like that?
So
Just doing like
yeah.
20 copies until you...
So I believe the question was, you are saying, okay, when we submit the job, I don't get the preview up front saying which area will be actually come out on my print, right? Exactly. So we don't have any solution outside right now, and we actually talked, some of the customers actually asking for that one. And I talked with Matthias. So they actually have a custom solution right now, which they are doing it. So there's some customization you can do, and we are talking with web application builder team, see whether they can come up with something out of the box. So
Yeah.
I do it, so if you want a shot. Cool.
There it is.
A couple things puzzled me about your overview map.
Oops.
One was it looked like your base map changed all by itself.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't get what you said about how it doesn't touch the overview map.
You have very good eyes. I was trying to fake it a little bit. In that case, what I did in that case, I actually have that layout saved up front, and in this case, I actually used a globe one. I didn't want to talk about this one, okay? But yeah, so that's why. That's why it looked different, because it is actually showing a scene view, not really a 2D map view. In this case, he has very good eyes.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have done that.
Thanks for the presentation. I'm very excited to use this 8.6, solve some problems that we have. There's one specific problem that we do with the customer where we need to be able to support multiple legends. Has that been addressed?
Could you explain what you mean by multiple legends?
So for your arcpy solution, you could add the legend.
Uh-huh.
If I wanted to add two legends, one for static data and one for dynamic data. At the moment, with publishing an MXP through ArcMap, if I add two legends, then the data sort of mangled.
Oh, you have two legend elements on your layout, and okay, you want to update both of them. And it's coming from the same data frame, or it's coming from two different data frames? Craig, do you?
I guess my question, do you want to update both of them, or do you want one to be static and one to be updatable?
Both to be updatable, so it needs to reflect what's in the current extent.
Okay.
At the moment, you don't have to manage that at all, which is cool. But unfortunately, if we use two, then the second one doesn't get updated.
So do you use two legends because they're in different spots on the map, or are you using it to make management of it easier?
For management to be easier.
Because there's a variety of techniques for legend management in terms of items getting injected automatically versus not that we could get into if those are some of the problems you're having. So maybe we could follow up afterwards to talk about that.
Yep.
Okay.
When you made it in the web app builder, that was 2D, right? So
Yeah.
you were using version 3 of the API?
Yep.
Okay, so I can use it, version 3 of the API?
Yeah, so regarding the API support, Version 3 of the API right now is not going to give you the best experience. It will in April, though.
In April, that one
In
that I'm-
April, it'll be fine. So when he exported and he had a vector tile layer, you saw that it had a white band on the bottom and the top. That's because in the JavaScript API 3x that's out right now, if they see a vector tile layer, they won't even send it to the print service. They will make a raster screen grab and send that to the service instead. They're resolving that in April.
In April, yep.
So in April, you'll get the full capabilities of this print service in 3x.
Yes.
That exists in 4x already.
Yes.
So if you wait a month,
Yep.
You'll get that full capability.
Yes, and I used a preview version of it. That's why I was able to solve this problem and see that one.
I saw you demonstrated the dynamic table. Does it support a dynamic legend also?
So the question is, do we support Dynamic Legend? So Dynamic Legend is a capability in the ArcGIS Pro Legend. It wasn't there in the early releases of Pro, if you saw that, but it is in there now, so we have that. Okay.
Yep.
We are technically out of time, so if anybody has remaining questions, just come on up and ask them while we're tearing down.
Thank you, guys.